What's up, tutorial heads? Got a bit of a slow video for y'all today. For you fellow horse enjoyers, we're gonna learn some tips on how to draw the pony. Now, the MLP pony and the horse are they're the same animal, but the MLP pony is like, it's like cartoon, whereas the honse is like it's like real life. So what the cartoon does is it like exaggerates the proportions, and it breaks the rules of like the anatomy, how like the joints and stuff can kind of like bend, instead of like in real life where like the bones, they can't bend, but like the MLP ponies, like they're kind of squishy and flexible. So let me see here. So you have the cartoon animal. This is technically Hans, but at the same time it's not, because it's a cartoon. So the proportions, let's get to proportions. The proportions of the cartoon Hans is going to be, you have your head, and you can measure by heads. Actually, the best way to measure is by heads if you're starting out. So you have like a head here, and then you have a little bit of length for the neck, and then you have a head here. Or like if I copy this, let me see, if I make a new layer, if I copy the head size, so the head minus the muzzle, if I copy this and then drag it down here, that's like, and then I copy it one more time and then I drag it over here, that's like, you know, it's about almost 2 heads is the body, right? And it's almost a head tall, the body. And then from the bottom of the head is going to be a little bit more than 1 head. From the bottom of the body is going to be a leg. And, you know, the tail is, you know, about 1.5 heads. The mane itself actually has a bunch of volume, so it sticks out from the head by about, you know, 1/2 head, sometimes in some cases, depending on the mane style. The ear also is going to stick out about 1/2 head, a little more than 1/2 head. So yeah, those are the main body proportions. So let's talk the head. The head itself. So when I draw a pony head, I usually start out with the snout, which for a female, it's going to be like this, sort of, like you can think like a curve and a line, but if you do it enough times, you'll just kind of like know it. But it's like very specific, this curve and line. It's easy to mess it up and get it wrong, like, or just go like that or go like that, and then it doesn't look right. But this is how I do it. It's kind of like, this is the female snout, and then if you have the male snout, it's more like boxy with sort of a jaw. That's like the male snout, because in MLP, that's how you differentiate males from females, or the mare from the stallion, rather. So that's the muzzle. And then for the eyes, you want to go like, you can't go too big, because like that's too big, and you can't go too small. Like if you want to draw like realistic Like that's too small. And then from the side view, this is a side view. So if you're looking at an eyeball from the side, it's gonna look like this, right? Like this is the pupil, and it's gonna be very flat. And that's the iris, and this is kind of the eyelid. So that's like the eye from the side, if you look at like a human eye. So we're gonna take this principle for the side head, and we're gonna do like starting from like not quite the top of the head, but like 2/3 of the way up. Kind of just make this like make this like backwards C shape. And then if you want like low eyelids, you can kind of lower the eyelids. And then of course, if they're looking that way, the eyes are going to be like flat like that. And if they're looking over here, if they're looking at you, then it's going to be like a circular, more of a circle. Because it's the eye is actually a sphere, and wherever you put the iris, like it's gonna move in perspective. So you have to think about perspective. Like if she's looking forward, it's gonna be like that, right? It could just be a line for the pupil, and then you have like the iris kind of, it's very thin. But if she's looking at you, then it's like that. Yeah, and I like to do like a half pupil, just because that's kind of been my style. And then you kind of have like, so that's, you kind of have the eye, so that's like you can do like eyelashes, like if it's a female, or if it's a male, maybe he won't have any sometimes you could do this line here, but I like to avoid that, because if you want to make something cute, like the less lines, like if you add lines, if you start adding like all these lines, like she looks old, like it's not quite as cute, like, but the less lines you have, like the more cuter it's gonna look. And when you color it, you can kind of compensate for that by like kind of coloring it more manually without the line. Anyways, getting off topic here. So that's the eye. You don't want to make it too big, and you definitely don't want to make it too small. I think it's better to make it too big than to make it too small. And then of course, if she's looking like, if her head is pointing like that way, so say it's going like that way, then we would kind of draw like that eye, like that. But let's say she's looking forward, so it's going like that, right? So let me merge this down. So that is the snout and the eyes. And then the neck is going to kind of come down like that. And you have sort of like this human neck where it comes up from the rib cage, or it comes up from the scapulas, which are on top of the rib cage. It comes straight up like a human, right? So, because that's another aspect of the cartoon style, is to make things more human. So the neck comes straight up almost, or it can go kind of back, but like depending on the posture of the character. But typically the spine goes down like a human and it goes back. So you have the neck like that. In a real horse, the neck would come from back here, right? So the spine would go like that in a real horse. Like, let's look at our real horse over here. You can see it kind of goes back. But in our cartoon horse, the neck goes straight up. So that's another thing. So that's the neck. The ears. You want to think of the ears as like a Lay's potato chip, right? Like, so you have, let's pretend you have like a Lay's potato chip, and it's kind of like bendy. It's kind of like got this bendy shape. If you're looking at it like from the front, it kind of looks like that. It's like, just think of like a Lay's potato chip shape, and then you kind of like draw it like that, like a Lay's potato chip. That's the only way I know how to describe it. And then again, the more you do these, the more used to it you'll get. So those are the ears, and that's pretty much, I think. Some people do nostrils, but like I said, like the less lines you put, the more cuter it'll be. So I don't do nostrils usually. Eyebrows. Sometimes ponies have eyebrows. They can really change the expression, like, oh my god, I'm so shy, or oh my god, I'm so like determined, or like, oh my god, I'm so neutral. It really changes the expression. But you could also do this with like the top of the eye. So like if you want her to be like angry, you would kind of do that, and then you could kind of do the angry, and then you want to change the mouth. So there, now that's angry. But let's keep it neutral for now. That is the side view. And of course, if you were doing a 3/4 view, it would be more like, you kind of have the muzzle, well, you kind of have like this cheek, kind of comes out a little bit. And then you kind of have the muzzle. Actually, you can, the cheek is totally like situational. It depends on if you want like a thin sort of line, like if you want like a thin cheek or like a puffy cheek, that's more like a stylization choice. But let's say if you have it from, now she's pointing like this way, so the eyes are no longer going to be on the side like that, they're going to be over here. So you would draw a circle, and you can put, for the pony like cartoon, they kind of like exaggerate the eye size, so the eyes are like really huge, and they kind of come down below the nostril, like the bottom of the eye is kind of like below the nostril, below the snout. That's a part of the cartoon style, which is totally unrealistic, but that's how it's done. And then one trick you can do to make sure it's right is to flip the canvas. So like, see, it looks all right if I flip it. Of course, if you draw the eyes like, say if you drew this eye like this, and then you flip it, like, it looks kind of messed up. So that's how you can tell if you did all right. And then the eye, like the pupil or whatever. And then this one is pointed more this way, or the eyeball is pointed more like side, or the perspective of the eyeball is more to the side for that eye. So this pupil is going to be flatter. And that's like a 3/4 view. Of course, if it's a male, then it will be more like, this. There, that now it's a male. That's the main differences. It's the muzzle between male and female. Okay, so let's say you have a front view. So for the front view, I like to start with the muzzle, and then like this is the top of the muzzle, so you're going to denote that sort of line. And then you might be thinking like, oh my god, I can never do that. Well, don't feel bad, because I literally sat there in a sketchbook and did this like 100 times, or like more than 100 times. to be able to do it so easily like this. So this is definitely not something I was born with, if you're feeling discouraged. Anyways, the eyes, kind of like I said, they go below the muzzle. And if you want it to be really cute, you can make like really big, like, pupils. And then once again, flip the canvas. See, it looks kind of off, probably because we made this one a little bit too high up. And the mouth is a little bit off, so yeah, that's a trick that even traditional artists will use, is they will flip the canvas to sort of make sure everything's all right. So I'll fix that bottom curve there. So that's the eyes and the muzzle. Kind of, if you want, you can do like little, like some artists do the little nostrils like that. And then the ears actually come up from like up above the eye, like a human. Like pretend if it was a human, it would be like that. Oh my god, that's horrific. But anyways, they come up like that. And remember, it's like that potato chip shape, but it's like pointed at the end. So it's kind of like pointing at you. But the bottom is like the potato chip shape. So just remember, like, Lay's potato chip. And some eyelids. Now it looks very unappealing without a mane. And we will get to the mane shortly. But for a male head, of course, it's going to be more like that. Because it's like a square muzzle. It's going to be more like a straight line, because the female curve is more like that, and the male curve is more like that, more like that, more like. If you want it really masculine, you can do like the jaw curve, like the jaw muscle. So like, if you want it really masculine, you would do like the Giga Chad. Yes, I do like horses. How could you tell? Okay, so number 4 is leg anatomy. So when you're thinking of horses, you can basically think of any animal, like a cat or a dog, and they will all have this same sort of like leg anatomy. So like you have the rib cage in the middle. Think of it like this. Like you think of it like less than symbol, or like a chevron and then a circle and then like a chevron and then the chevrons are like enclosing the circle. So like the circle is like trapped between the chevrons. You think of it like that, and always remember that, because that is the anatomy. Because you have up here, you have these, let me make it red, you have the scapula up here, and that is like the shoulder blade up here for the front leg. And then it goes down into the front of the chest, which is actually the shoulder. Just like in a human, how you have the scapula, and it goes to the shoulder, the deltoid. Except in this case, it's the shoulders are on the side. They're not like if you have the view from the front, like the scapulas are like that, and then the shoulders are like that. So that's the view from the front. So that's the shoulder, or shoulder shoulder in quotation marks because it's arguable which is which because there's so many differences between animal and human legs. But the one thing is, like, when you practice gesture, if you do time gesture practice if you want to get good at horses or like ponies, if you do time gesture practice using cats, dogs, horses, or any animal, that will actually help you with these. But yeah, anyways, you have the scapula back here, and then the shoulder, and then it goes down to this is actually the elbow, and then it comes down actually to the ankle joint, which is where the hoof starts. So, but of course, cartoony style, you kind of bend it. It's not like straight like we have our real life horse. Over here you can see things are kind of like, the only thing that's bent is like, because you have the scapula, and then you have the shoulder, and then you have like the elbow, and then it goes down, straight down, and then you have like where the hoof starts is actually a finger. The hoof is actually a finger. So that's the front leg, except for a pony, you can just draw this curve. And then like that could be the front. And then you have, of course, the rib cage, which I haven't studied very, very thoroughly, but I think if we move on to the back legs, you'll kind of see, you'll kind of understand why. Okay, so for the pelvis, so on a human, the pelvis is like that, and then the legs go down. But on an animal, the pelvis is like that, and then the rib cage is like that. So it's like tilted on an animal. So the pelvis is actually going to be like on top and tilted forward. So like that's the pelvis, and it goes, and then from the pelvis it goes back and down. Like, remember the chevron shape, back and down, and then it goes to the I want to say the hip joint back here. And then this right here is actually the knee. So what you'll have is like this kind of shape like this because of all the muscle, like the quadriceps and everything on top of the, like, and like above the knee kind of goes into like, and then the knee is like right here. And then it goes down to the ankle joint, and then fun fact, it's one toe, which is the hoof, and then you kind of have you actually have like a joint back here, I think, actually, let me see, and that's what makes like the so it's like the elbow, and then it goes back. So I think this is actually like a second joint that we don't have as humans. And then because you have like this shape right here, which is like that, and then you kind of have the butt, which is of course like the hip joint and the pelvis. So that's the back leg. Let me look at my notes. Yeah, and the hoof is actually like a finger, because you have like the one bone that goes into it to hold it, instead of like the human hand, which is like 5 bones. They just have the one. So this is like the hand bones that we have in our wrist, but they just have one finger, so they're like middle fingering us all the time. Okay, let me see, where are we? 5. Let's talk about manes and tails. So let's put a mane on this pony really quick. Let's make it purple because my pony Sona is purple mane. So when I draw my mane, I consider the volume, so like it goes outside of the skull. You don't draw the mane like on the skull. Like if I were to draw the mane on the skull, like that doesn't look right. Because it's like why is the hair so flat? Like it looks all messed up, so that's because hair has volume, so it's gonna come out. And in the pony's case, it's gonna come out a lot. So that would be like the front, and then of course I have like these bangs that go over like that. And remember, the shape language for this is like, it's like that, right? Because we have all these shapes that are kind of the same thing, but slightly altered to be more random. Because what you don't want is you don't want like this like saw thing that's like the same shape over and over. No, you want variance. So you want to take the shape that you're doing and like vary it. For each thing. So that's and then I have this one little like thing that comes down, and that's kind of my pony Sona's mane, which is kind of front loaded, but we can fix that because remember we're giving like extra volume. So that's how I would draw the mane. And like I said, you kind of want these like randomness, but not too random. You want to kind of remember the rule of thirds, which means like this looks better than this, just because of rule of thirds, like 3 random things placed in patterns of 3, which is more of like an observation thing. Like once you get better at observing, you'll be able to see it better. But when you're starting out, just remember to like keep it kind of random. Like you don't want to do these like saw shapes. Like I said, you want the randomness, and you want to kind of you kind of want to pick a shape for your hair. Like say it's this shape, and then you want to just do that shape over and over again. And then this shape over and over again, if it's just the same thing, doesn't look good. Like you can see, like even if I lay them on top of each other, like it looks wrong, right? So randomness, rule of thirds. And then for the tail, let's say you have like, you kind of have this shape and it goes like down, like it goes down and then up for mine, right? So it goes down and then it like shoots up. And that's just the shape I use like a lot. But for the tail, it's the same premise. Like you want, you know, about a head's length, a little, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on how big your tail is. And you always want these randomness, like you want these random little shapes of the same shape that makes up the whole thing. And it's like the same shapes, but repeated in different sizes and different variations. And that's how I do manes and tails. Of course, if you have like, let's see, yeah, like a very like faux hawk mane, maybe it would be like, let's pick a warm color here. Let's do red. Say you have like a faux hawk mane, then it's like this shape. Maybe it comes down. Maybe that's and then you have like the little indentations of the hairline, right? So that's gonna be like a faux hog. And then you kind of have like, maybe you can't see it from this angle, but the hair indentations would be like that. And then you kind of have like, and you want to randomize directions too. You don't want to just randomize shapes, but you want to keep it like the same shape language. So it's always that, it's always that. It's not like we're doing a new wavy thing or we're doing a new circle thing. It's always that, right? Or whatever shape you pick. If you pick like a wavy thing, right? So if you pick like a wavy hair, then you could do like this shape. Of course, that kind of looks, so maybe it comes down a little bit. And then you have like the wavy shape. You can copy that wavy shape. And that's like the shape language premise, is like you want to use the same shapes over and over, but like differently. And then maybe let's say like, wait, how would I think it would be like that. It was like a wavy. So yeah, that's main and tails. What's next is I want to touch on the concept of iterative practice. Like I said, I probably drew this stuff hundreds of times in sketchbooks. So like one thing I would do is I would draw like a bunch of circles on a page, like 10 to 20 circles or 9 to 20 circles. And I would fill each one with the same head. And of course this takes hours and can be frustrating. You fill each one with the same head, the same expression, the same pose. You never want to change it if you're doing iterations of it, because then you don't learn that thing. You start to try to learn something else. Like one thing is like you want to do one thing and do it well when you're doing this, so you want to do the same face over and over, for example. So that's iterative practice. If you don't do this, you're missing out, because it gives you a ton of gains. Let me see, common mistakes. Making the head too small, or just having proportions off in general. Like, just remember the proportions we went over up here. It's like one head and then two heads for the body, and then a little over 2 heads length for the feet. Just remember those proportions, and then remember that the hair has a lot of volume, or the mane and the tail has a lot of volume, so you don't want to just draw it flat on the thing. But yeah, that's proportions. Also, the more you practice proportions, like the more you practice gesture, if you do animal time gestures, that will help with this a lot. Another thing is stiff poses. So like if you have really stiff poses, you're not really sure like which way the curve should go. So your poses are just like super stiff. I see this a lot in human art too, is like just really stiff poses. And again, this is where time gesture practice using like animal photos. Like I've done it for cats, I think, which helped a lot. Because it's, like I said, all animals have the same sort of, all four-legged animals, I should say, have the same sort of bone structure for the legs. So you could do time gesture practice using any animal, and that will help with stiff poses. The last thing is just the eyes too small, or like head proportions, or like head curves. Like maybe you got the snout wrong. That's where or maybe you made the eyes too small. That's where this concept of sort of iterative practice comes in. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to cover today. Thanks for watching.